So, Jamie, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
The pleasure is mine, Amber. Thank you for giving people like me a platform. I
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh, of course. And I think we got you hot off of like a really strong rant this morning. I saw on your story. That's a perfect segue into
Yeah.
actually what we're going to talk about today. So, for those of you who don't follow you, or for those of, our audience who don't follow you yet or who didn't see the story, kind of share what were you heated up about? What was going on?
I was heated up by one client, but really it speaks to a legion of people who said, Jamie, I just wanted to remind you that I will not be renewing going into this coming month. I just have too much to work on regarding my mental health, and I don't have the bandwidth for your program.
Right.
Which then led to me slamming my face into my steering wheel because I had heard that, Amber, over the course of 30 days, I've probably heard that from clients or prospects anywhere from 4 to 6 times.
Oh my gosh.
Super
Yeah,
common, super
and
common.
it just feels sort of like, it feels like you're watching somebody that you care about be upstream and chuck the paddle.
Yes, very similar
Yeah,
to that. And like you and I
yeah.
were talking about just offline, when you see your former self in them and you want to
Mhm.
shake them because you want to say, but I've been through it.
Right,
I'm showing you how it could turn out for you should you
right,
choose the same path I'm on versus the one you think is correct for you, right? It's almost like
right.
a friend in an awful toxic relationship
Mhm. With
and you're
themselves.
yeah, and you're the
Yes.
good one having been through all of the frogs that you've kissed and say,
Right.
if you could just not make the same mistakes, this
Mhm.
would end a lot better for you.
Yes, yes, it's so true. And I think that people think, okay, well, if I have this finite amount of time,
Yeah.
and I have all of these things that need to get done, I can't afford either time wise or money wise to spend it on this. And I'm always thinking, you can't afford not to do this. Like the consequences of not doing this are so much more significant
Yeah.
than the small amount of money and time you're going to spend to have some kind of self care to hang on to through these storms, right? Like if you're going through the rapids of life, instead of saying, well, fuck it, I'm going to die anyways, this is going to hurt, it's going to be messed up, I'm not going to come out the other end, you're like, all right, I can kind of hunker down with a few really solid self-care skills,
Hmm.
and that's going to help me sort of navigate these really messy waters versus just like, like this kind of all or nothing thing. Do you find that this is more significant? You work mostly with the queer population, the queer community, right?
Yeah.
And obviously something super important to both of us. Do you think this is something that affects the queer community in a different way than others?
Yes. Yes. And for whatever reason, we are less equipped to
Mhm.
handle it. It's
Mhm.
almost like our mental health starts out at a disadvantage. We already start
Right.
out very vulnerable. So when something rocks our world a little bit,
Mhm.
it's a mountain out of a molehill,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's a 9 on the Richter scale, whereas it should have
Mhm.
just been a 1.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what I can tell you when I think about myself? So I don't know a ton about sort of like your coming out story, but I spent most of the early part of my life or up until 2020 or 2019 being with a man, right? So I came out as queer, when I was 17. I came out to a Mormon family. My parents said, no, that's not an option for you. So I married a man, had kids, did that whole thing, right? Then
Yeah.
my brother died, and it was like the ability to continue on in that life truly just evaporated almost immediately. And what happened to me is that now, if somebody comes to me and they say, listen, I know you don't believe me, but I actually know what's better for you. Over so many years of my life, like just so fighting to like get in touch with myself, fighting to really go inside of myself and say, okay, no, actually, I know what's better for me, right? So now I almost am like not coachable in a way. Like I think it makes me a little bit hard to coach because if somebody says, I know what's better for you, I feel this flag go up like, no, we cannot go back there. I know
Yeah.
the best thing for me, right? And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it's like the same in the queer community because we've had to fight so hard to
Mhm.
get in touch with ourselves and to like hang on to that because everybody in the world is telling you you're not this gender, you don't love this kind of person, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And so now there's like a resistance there to trusting somebody outside of yourself to maybe have some good advice for you. I don't know.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more that the world, this, I guess, the cisgender heteronormative world has handicapped
Mhm.
us to an extent, but that's why I
Mhm.
think it is so important that the rainbow flag is on
Mhm.
the first thing you see on my Instagram bio. It's like, hey, I come in peace.
Right.
Anything I'm about
Yes.
to tell you comes from queer love, my brothers,
Yes.
sisters, and all inclusive. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's different
Yes.
with, like, the random one on Peloton or whoever you see on television gives you advice
Mhm.
about health and fitness. It's different when, like, your own brethren is saying, I made
Yes.
these mistakes, maybe listen to me.
Absolutely. Yes. And what you're trying to help people do is discern between that deep knowing of like, no, this is my gender, or no, this is my sexuality, and like sort of the superficial kind of voices that we hear on the surface that are like, you don't need to go work out today. You don't, like, this is too much for you. You can't participate in this program. Like, kind of helping people know the difference between that deep knowing and just like resistance in the
Yes.
moment.
Yes, and not only that, I would also like to add that my job is to fight the law of inertia. An object at
Yes.
rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by an external source, right?
Right. Mhm.
I cannot think of a better definition of empathy, I guess empathy, but anxiety or depression.
Mhm.
We get like this when we are anxious. We are this tight little ball that just doesn't move. With
Mhm.
depression too, we are a tight little ball that doesn't move out of our bed, that doesn't move into
Right.
a relationship, that doesn't obviously move into the gym. So it's my
Mhm.
job to shove that ball and give it
Yes.
momentum so that the law of inertia works the other way and that you're the ball that
Yes.
doesn't stop moving.
Right. Exactly. Move in just some direction, right? But we got to get some got to yeah, wake things up a little bit. Get things,
That's it.
yes.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah. This is like a client I worked with yesterday. Her shoulders were just sort of like stuck up by her ears. And so
Yeah.
we practiced squeezing them up higher and harder, more intentionally, and then squeezing them back down, right? It like kind of goes against what you think, because you
Yeah.
think, I'm trying to actually not feel anxious in my shoulders. Why would I push them up more, right? But we need to start some movement here. Like the only way to sort of loosen things up is to get some movement in the body. And I think that kind of goes into what you were saying. You see mental health and physical health as being very closely aligned. And
Mm.
how did you learn that? Like, when did that become true for you?
Uh, oh my gosh. Honestly, I think it was towards the recovery part of my eating disorder. So once I had made
Mm-hmm.
the decision to sober up and recover and
Mm-hmm.
actually started nourishing my body with both a healthy quantity and quality of calories, I
Mm-hmm.
realized how much better I felt, how much clearer I could think, how much less on edge I was around family and friends. So, how much deeper and richer my relationships became, but also how I
Mm-hmm.
could perform, which then made all of those things better, right? Like being able to
Right.
perform and identify as an athlete who could do stuff just made
Mm-hmm.
me feel better.
Right. So there was like a confidence that came from being more competent just in life,
Yeah,
which then affects your mood, your sense of
yeah,
well-being,
yeah,
right? And then probably on a deeper sort of biological level, like you're saying, just like being more aware in your brain and having less of those physical effects of, you know, drugs or alcohol or
yeah,
whatever, right? Lack of movement.
yep. That's
What is
exactly.
it? Do you think that, so we're talking about the queer community in particular, you think anxiety and depression, I mean, there's research that shows the queer community is more plagued by anxiety and depression and suicide and all of these different things, right?
Yep.
So is it like your number one prescription that people should be exercising and should be moving their bodies, like specifically strength training? Like that's like your religion
That's
is
so
like,
funny. I love that you said exercise and moving their bodies. Moving their
mhm,
bodies is a priority, right? Because I have clients who are not at the 5,000 step per day level.
right,
Right? The last thing I need is for them to learn how to bench press. That
right,
I
yes,
don't give a shit, right? You get under,
yes,
you don't care whether you get under. I don't even care if you have a gym membership.
Right.
5,000 steps per day, bare minimum. Get outside,
Yeah.
vitamin D, fresh air, change of environment too, right? Sometimes that's
Yes.
all we need for to get out of an anxious state or a depressive
Mhm.
state, just not to be
Mhm.
under your covers or in your house that you don't love because it's full of toxic energy.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you say? So this is something that I try to do with clients, right? Because you want to meet them where they're at, and then you want to
Yes.
build from there. What does a
Yes.
client say to you when you're like, all right, your prescription, your plan is that I want you to walk 5,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
Is that a hard sell? They're like, what? This is like nothing. What? This isn't. How am I going to see the product? I want ripped abs. I want babes. I want
Yeah.
babes to want me. I want to be like all the swipes on the
Yeah.
apps,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is this a hard sell for people to just, okay, I want you to walk more?
So, okay, great question. And the answer is twofold. The people who
Mhm.
tell me that that's what they want are prepared to get a gym membership. That's the truth,
Mhm.
right? Because it
Okay.
sounds, to an extent, they have confidence. They just happen to not be in a relationship right now. Or maybe they have
Mhm.
a certain amount of confidence, but they need a little bit more external validation. If that's the
Mhm.
case, they are 100% ready for the Jaime Filer fitness experience of macros, training, and cardio. The
Yes.
5,000 steps per day are for people who are like, Jaime, I'm not sure if this is for me. I haven't been to
Mhm.
the gym in 10 years. My hips hurt all the time. I just don't know
Mm.
if I even want a trainer right now.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Where I meet you is all right, why don't we just talk about clean eating guidelines or
Mhm.
how to get you moving more?
Right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
movement, what kinds of movement are some of your clients doing? Because I know you and I both like to lift weights, but
Yes.
probably there's a spectrum of things that people like to do and they don't think of themselves as athletes, but they are. So like what are some different kinds of movements that some of your clients enjoy?
Definitely biking outside,
Mhm.
running outside, yoga, uh,
Mhm.
kickboxing. And a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of them, not a lot, but I have about 5 clients on my roster right now who are exclusively YouTube video based. So
Okay.
for them, what I'll do is clean eating guidelines or macros for nutrition.
Mhm. Mhm.
Obviously, I prescribe a certain number of steps per day, but then I have found the best videos I think are out there for upper body, lower body,
Mm.
core. And
Right.
I say, okay, rotate through these three, pick a
Mhm.
different one each time, and let's do
Mhm.
3 videos a week. And then
Right.
they just follow along, and that is
Yes.
their exercise prescription, and they're totally happy.
Right. Yes. It's like the sign of a good coach is the ability to be flexible based on what your clients need and want,
Oh yeah,
right? Because they're going to come to you from any number of places in their lives, and if you said, "Listen, this is the way to do it," but they hate it, right? You're the adherence, right?
yeah,
The adherence is just so low. And
yep,
that's something that I am still learning because I am in the religion of strength training. So I'm like, this is what you got to do, right? Like
yep,
that's my sort of mission, right? That's my cell. But it is important to like from a behavior analytic perspective, we're always trying to pair the hard thing with reinforcement, right? And strength might not be reinforcing, right? So you're like, okay, we can pivot, we can be flexible around that.
yeah, yep. It's
Um,
when they say something like, "Hey, coach, I'm really not seeing the results that I wanted or expected," or
mhm.
like, "My muscles don't seem to be changing shape." That's when I
Mhm.
introduce, hey, maybe if you lifted.
Yes. Ooh,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Yes,
but
this is
again, they
my
have to come to
opportunity.
me, yeah. They have to come to me.
Yeah. It's very client-led.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So the other reason that that I really feel like there's a super close relationship between physical and mental health, and tell me how this shows up for you or what you think about this, is that by having clients come into the gym and learning how to tolerate uncomfortable stimuli in their bodies,
Yeah,
this translates into outside of the gym, right? The hard conversation that you have to have with your boss or your family member, the boundary you have to set, right? That creates aversive internal stimuli, right? You're like feeling it in your body.
yeah,
And what I noticed in my life was that if I could go into the gym and I could have, hundreds of pounds like on my back or, under my feet or whatever, and I could lift it and I could stay calm and I could sort of tolerate it, that translated into all of these other areas of life where it was like, I can do anything because I know how to tolerate discomfort in my body and stay calm at the same time.
yep.
What do you think about that? I mean, is that also like I see that as being really closely related to anxiety because anxiety is just, aversive internal stimuli.
Yeah.
essentially, right? What do you
Yep.
think about that?
I think that couldn't be more true. At a super visceral, superficial, physical level, we all know that
Mm-hmm.
anxiety will occur in your mind and in your body before the actual thing has happened, right? Before the
Mm-hmm.
concrete, right?
Mm-hmm.
We overthink because we're in the past,
Right.
the future, whatever it is, we're not
Mm-hmm.
present. That's what anxiety
Mm-hmm.
is. It's that gap.
Right.
Even just by you driving to the gym, we are navigating
Mm-hmm.
anxiety in its own way. We're overcoming it. So
Right.
before you've even
Mm-hmm.
gotten 100 pounds on your back, you've already
Mm-hmm.
overcome the anxiety because you stepped in the gym.
Right.
At a psychological level, it goes back to what you said about competence. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Consistency,
Mm-hmm.
competence, confidence. You have to do something
Mm-hmm.
enough, you have to do it well, and then believe that you're awesome. So
Right.
3 days over the course of 7 in the gym, that is
Mm-hmm.
going to translate into whatever you do the following week in life. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Right. Yes. And you might not know this, but in health behavior, there is a paradigm of thought. There's a way of working with people, like similar to like cognitive behavior therapy or whatever. This is called ACT therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. So it's a way of working with people, and the biggest premise of it is that you identify your values and then you move towards them no matter what. So what you're saying is like, my value is physical health, right? That requires me to go to the gym, and what you're learning to do is tolerate all of the things that come up for you. You shouldn't go to the gym, you can't do anything, you don't know what you're doing, you're ugly, people are going to look at you, right? All of this stuff kind of coming at you, and you learn how to almost have blinders on and just move toward that value anyways. You didn't even know that like the program that you've created for people is rooted in this evidence-based model, but like that's acceptance and commitment therapy.
Wow.
Right, is essentially the ability to, I mean, that's how you know a good trainer, because it's accidental almost. And I'm like, oh well, you don't even know what you're doing, I know what you're doing, right? But like, the ability to just sort of like move towards that values based life, and be having all of those thoughts pop up. I mean, does that even still happen for you as a trainer? Are you immune at this point to like negative self-talk and stuff, or does this still come up for you now?
So not as it relates to the gym, but every once in
Right.
a while, I heard an interesting phrase on a podcast that I heard a month ago, and it was fact check your limiting beliefs. And the
Mm-hmm.
idea here was when you tell yourself that nobody wants to hear what you have to say, for example,
Mm-hmm.
all you have to
Mm-hmm.
do is pick one time in your life where you like had the attention of the boardroom, your significant other, a
Mm-hmm.
parent, the monologue we all had to do in 8th grade English, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All you had to do was say, wait, that's not true, because in the 8th grade, the entire class wanted to hear what I had to say, right? Every
Yes,
time I
yes.
want to talk to Katie, I have her undivided attention. So why would I ever put myself in that situation to believe that limiting belief? So,
Right.
and I'm working on fact checking my limiting beliefs when they come up.
Yes. And then the other prong of that is fact checking. And then also, let's say that because our brains are really smart, right? So you might fact check it, and then it might be like, well, remember that other person who didn't want to hear what you
Yeah,
had to say? Like,
okay.
our brains will remind us. And so then the other piece of that is allowing that thing to sit there and be in your ear. Essentially, it's in the car with you, it's in the passenger seat, though, not the driver's seat, because that thought wants to take the wheel and like jerk you away from the gym, or jerk you away from this like speaking gig that you have or
Yeah,
whatever. Don't go, you're going to be humiliated or whatever. And you're learning how to sit with that thought in the car without
right.
letting it have control. And it just keeps talking to you, but you're almost desensitized to it, which
Yeah.
is the case for you now, probably. I mean, I wonder if you even notice. Maybe you are having thoughts, about your competence in the gym. Maybe you're not. I wonder
Right.
if you are, but you're just not noticing because you like, it doesn't even mean anything now.
Have you ever heard the expression inviting Mara to tea?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna mess it up. I think it's Buddhism. There is the
Okay.
god of
Yes.
destruction is Mara.
Yes.
And so
Okay.
she comes in and like Tasmanian devils your shit emotionally.
Yes.
So what you
Mhm.
have to do is invite Mara to tea. You have to
Yeah.
let her air her grievances to you, tell her all of the
Mhm.
awful things about you and your life, and just sit and say, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, I
Yep.
understand. I see.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, this has been pleasant. Thank you. And then you escort her out like nothing happened.
Right.
So
Yes.
I have done that before. A lot of
Yes.
self-development, a lot lot of self-help work, and I've invited Mara to tea enough times that if she wants to get in my passenger seat, I'm going to Uber
Yeah.
her wherever she needs to go.
Let's go. Let's go, girl. I've been with you before. You can hang out
That's
with me,
it.
but I'm still going. I'm
Still
still
going.
going.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
You know what this reminds me of? You must have done this on a story. I think it's been a couple weeks, but you were going to share what you ate for the day. And Katie was like, no one cares about what you ate for the day. And you fact checked that. You fact checked that. And you said, yes, they do care. And you showed us what you were eating for the day. And I
Yes.
appreciate that you employed your fact checking mechanism when you needed it
Yep.
in that moment, right?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Even if it's when it's my own wife that I'm driving to the gym. Yeah.
You're
Agreed.
like, they do care. And they
Yeah.
did. They
Yeah.
did care, Jamie.
Exactly.
I cared. Okay, so why don't you talk to me a little bit about your kind of your system? How are you working with people? You know, we talked about the 3 C's last time, and I think it's a really good model. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
This is consistency, competence, and confidence.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it all begins with, I guess, my intake form, right? You
Mhm.
onboard a client. There is a
Mhm.
lot of people are just like, okay, Jamie, I'm ready to start. And I say, hold up, I know nothing about you.
Right.
And that's sometimes the first, like, sometimes that's the first time these people are being heard, right?
Yeah.
They ask you, how many
Mhm.
days a week do you want to train? Obviously, what are your goals? What are your expectations of me? How many days a week do you want to train? How many minutes per day do you have to train? What equipment are we working with?
Mhm.
Then the program comes. They tell me they have
Okay.
no equipment. Then we do an odd object or body weight only workout. They tell me they have
Mhm.
15 minutes to train. Okay, we get in a really quick circuit.
Right.
So it all comes back to building the consistency first. So I meet them where they're
Mhm.
at when they tell me what they can do. Then
Mhm.
I give them a program again after we've had that initial compatibility call. I will get a sense of how much anxiety they have regarding the process, but also in everyday life. And I will either give them a program that's like right where they're at or just slightly above if they want to get challenged. And then month after month, we build on that in order to boost the competency and confidence.
Mhm. Awesome. So competency, let's see. So the consistency. Okay, so consistency, does that usually start at home? Like for people who have maybe social physique anxiety and they're thinking, I'm not ready, right, to go to the gym, which maybe some clients, I mean, do most of your clients start out in the gym or what would you
Most of
say
them
is your
do.
sort of percentage?
Most of
Okay,
them
okay.
do because I think the ones who, I'm going to say, let's say the 15%
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't necessarily come to me in the first place because just the idea of me would be way too intimidating. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yeah,
they'd be doing something before me. Uh,
right.
so I guess to build competency, it's just a matter of listening to them,
Mm-hmm.
challenging them enough to
Mm-hmm.
not push their bandwidth too much, and
Right.
constantly being on the other end of the phone um, for when they need me, right? That's why I have different
Right.
tiers. I think we talked about this as well. I have different tiers of my coaching because some people are totally cool with once a week email check-ins. Some
Right.
people need me to be on the other end of the phone via Instagram all the time. And then some
Mm-hmm.
people need that and a phone call every week. So
Right.
communication is the other key to consistency, compliance,
Mm.
and making sure they're doing what they need to do every week.
Right, absolutely. And then once they're sort of there, they're being consistent, they're starting to feel really competent, they're kind of walking around like a badass in the gym. That's when sort of the confidence is starting to really build for them, right? That can you start to feel it? Do you start to see it when you're working with a client? Like,
100%.
yeah.
I'll tell you how I know it. It's because in my check-in form, so every week,
Mhm.
every single client fills out a check-in form with not just their weight and measurements, but they also have to fill in a big win for the week so that they can pat themselves
Awesome.
on the back for something and 3 goals that they want to achieve going into this coming week. So
Mhm.
typically, a client will fill out a big win. They'll leave it blank, and they're like, "Jamie, I don't know if I had any wins. Like, I don't
Right.
know. This week was shit. Like, it was just awful. And my only goal was just to get my steps in." And
Right.
then by week 12, they're like, "I asked 3 girls out. I ended up on 5. I decided to take a trip to Arizona." And then they're
Right.
become financially stable and retire at 45, and I bought my first,
Wow.
right? So there's a progression.
Wow.
So yeah, I that's how I
You're like,
know.
whoa, we created a monster who's now taking over the
Yeah.
world. That's what we want, right? Yes.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So you see when people start to really embody that confidence, you actually see it push into other totally non-fitness related realms, like
Yeah.
financial and like stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's when that transit, right? Like we said whatever 7 minutes ago, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So once I
Right.
see their goals slowly transition to get my water every day, hit my steps, make sure to
Mm-hmm.
burn 300 calories doing cardio, into eventually have that tough conversation with my partner,
Right.
put aside
Yes.
a down payment for a house, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
right? It started
Okay.
with steps and water.
Yes, I
Now
know.
you recognize a toxic relationship when you see one.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
still amazed. Like that's why I always say I'm in the business of transformation, not weight loss. Weight loss is like you're the same person but 15 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
What's that going to get you, right? Like, okay, no, you're in a slightly smaller body, but transformation is like I set a boundary. I don't betray myself anymore,
Yeah.
right? I'm a
Yeah.
badass in every realm of life. Like it's so much bigger than just your body type, and that kind of leads me into like um sort of how do you work with people from this like body positive place where you're trying to sort of reframe
Mhm.
like your value does not come from your body size, and at the same time I want to help you live in the best most healthy body you can
Yeah.
and where you feel most confident.
So again, we talked about this offline a little bit. When someone tells you they want to lose 20 pounds, that's not what they want, right? What they
Mhm.
want is to be
Mhm.
more confidence. What they want is sex with the lights on. What they want is to be able to take their
Mm.
shirt off for the first time after top surgery, or just for the first
Mhm.
time ever, whatever body
Right.
you're in, and not
Mhm.
think about it, right? Take your shirt
Right.
off like a
Yes.
normal person. Uh,
Yes.
so that's, I think, the biggest thing. That's what we
Yeah.
have to acknowledge.
Yes.
That's
And it's
that's
not a body type. It's a
right.
feeling. And you can
Yes.
embody that feeling, but that feeling comes from like not betraying yourself, being consistent with your self-care. Like that feeling doesn't come from I don't think the smaller body size, but from like the I prioritize myself.
Right. Right. Which is
Yeah.
why there's like a small section that's like, okay, did your weight and measurements change? But then the majority is,
Right.
how many days a week did you follow your macros? How many
Yeah.
days a week did you follow without seeing what your weight is doing? If I see that you are
Mhm.
compliant, I will be able to tell you what your weight is doing. I do
Yep.
not put an emphasis on progress. I put an emphasis on the process.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. And a really good book. I'm sure you've read this. James Clear,
Yes,
Atomic Habits. Yeah, that's a
absolutely.
great recommendation for anyone who hasn't read that. It's a good, easy audiobook too. But that's the whole thing, right? It's like, let's just let go of all of that, whatever that's going to look like. The body will adapt however it's meant to adapt.
Yeah.
Show up and do the things, keep the promises that you made to yourself,
Yep.
and see how that transforms you,
Yep.
right? It's
Yep.
that it really is like it's just all an inside job. It happens to show on the outside, but that's just kind of maybe the cherry on top, right? If that's something that is really important.
Of course.
So if you could go back to like little Jamie, right, who hadn't learned all of these lessons yet and who was just like in the thick of it, where this little person would throw the oar when they're upstream, would say, I can't take care of myself, would, or maybe someone that you loved in your life, you saw them doing this, what would you say? There's somebody listening to this right now and they're like, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, right?
Yeah.
What's that thing, right, that would have like hit you, that would have meant something?
Um, I can't find like a really eloquent Instagram worthy way of saying it, but what would have resonated with me the most is how you treat yourself will reflect how the rest of the world will treat you.
Mm,
Right? It's
yeah.
like, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't love yourself, how do you expect anyone else to love you? Yes, but like people don't see, here's the thing, Amber, and I think our entire conversation comes down to this. People don't see physical fitness or physical health as a form of love.
Mm-hmm.
So people
Mm-hmm.
don't see how getting 5,000 steps is a form of self-love.
Right.
Curling up in the corner as a function of your anxiety attack isn't really doing yourself any favors either, right? Why not try mine?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, what I would have told myself is if you continue to tolerate that feeling for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to attract more of it.
Right, right, absolutely. It sort of reminds me of a Janis Joplin quote, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was something like, don't betray yourself, or you like, don't betray yourself. You're all you've got. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you need you, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't he's like,
Right.
there's nobody else that's gonna do it. Like,
Yeah.
you're the person in charge of taking care of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's just like, if you leave that to someone else is not going to do it right, and
No.
someone else can hurt you. So it's like, we have to care for ourselves. That's how we teach others. This is
Mm,
how you care for me. I see myself as valuable enough to do that. You need to see me as valuable enough to do that.
yeah.
I think a part of the reason that people don't see fitness behavior as self love is because of the fitness industry, all of which we are fighting with,
Yeah.
where it's like, here are all these toxic, dangerous, fucked up ways that you're going to fix your body. And so
Yeah.
you see it and you're like, that's the opposite. And so that's what you, and that, but that's the quick fix. That's the thing that's not going to work. That's the thing that's not going to be sustainable. So you and I are fighting this and trying to basically change the narrative. No,
Yeah.
this is self love. This is self care. If you do it in a way that's loving, and it comes from a place of, I love myself and see myself as valuable enough that
Yeah.
I'm going to take this hour to prioritize myself. Not, I'm going to take this hour in order to access self love, but I'm going to take this hour from a place of self love. It's like, the love is there
Oh,
first and the behavior flows from it,
yep.
right? Not in
Yeah.
order to access it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good. And the truth is, Amber, they can either waste the half hour sitting in their anxiety and trying to figure it out. And
Right,
like, I understand you don't want to hire a trainer. Okay, great. How
right.
are you actively working on your anxiety? I'm just
Yes,
curious,
right.
right? Because I
Yeah.
actually have a scientifically proven method.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, what are you, why don't you tell me about what you're doing?
Right, right.
But I
Totally.
can't always say that to people, and I'm not trying
No,
to come across as a dick. I don't want to make the anxiety worse, but I just wish
right.
again people could see that just getting steps and drinking more water could have this profound effect that a therapist hasn't yet.
Right. I actually really agree with you. I have an amazing therapist right now, but I didn't always. And even having an amazing therapist, the biggest skill that I have learned to care for myself has been through strength training, because of learning how to get recentered in my body,
Yep.
feel the feelings in my body. My body is information. When I'm around a certain person, ooh, you feel it. I don't like that. There's
Yeah.
something in there that doesn't feel right. Then you honor it. But if you are not in touch with your body, you're not honoring when you have these different, right? Like, then you're not setting boundaries with people that you should, or, right, you can't make the right choices for yourself because you're not feeling.
Yep.
I think, if, like, at the heart of it, strength training helps you get back, and just movement in general, get back in touch with the body.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
that's how so I would say, like, have you ever worked with a somatic? Like, a somatic therapist does body stuff. And I think that's the piece that's missing, is that a lot of therapists aren't teaching you how to get in touch. And that's what movement does for people. It teaches you that.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I try to equate it to we all know how we feel after a night of drinking or hard partying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we know what it feels like to not feel hungover, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have both sides of the coin, but sometimes when
Right.
someone only knows anxiety, you can't
Mm-hmm.
convince them that's actually the hangover feeling. That's not the
Right.
sober feeling. I
Mm-hmm.
can get you to the sober place, but you got to give up the booze first, right? So
Right. Yes.
no, they don't know how good feels because they've never felt any way without it.
Right. And the booze here is anything that numbs you from the reality of your situation. So even like neurotic behaviors, compulsive behaviors, these are because they remove a little bit the
Yeah,
anxiety. That is your addiction, is
right.
engaging in that repetitive behavior, even if the repetitive behavior is staying home,
Yeah.
refusing to, be able to make a move, make a decision, paralysis, right? Give up the booze. The booze is whatever is numbing you from the discomfort that's waiting for you. But the only way is to face the discomfort, walk towards it, find it.
Yep.
Seek it out, right?
That's it. Yes. Yep.
Seek
Yep.
it up. Find the darkness and walk towards it.
Yep.
It's
Because
painful,
it's really not
painful and scary.
it's probably not that bad.
It's not. It's not. It's a myth. So, my gosh, it's so wonderful to have this conversation with you. That was like the fastest 30 minutes of my life. I feel like we were both just like,
Oh yeah, I feel like we
right?
didn't even get to all of our like we're probably a quarter of the way through the notes that we took.
Oh, yeah, we like 1 out of 100 bullet points for
Okay,
sure. But
cool.
that just means that we'll have to have you back on for sure.
Gotcha.
I would love for you to talk a little bit about your services and how people can find you.
I'm a personal trainer. It's my service. No, my service is like Amber. I'm in the transformation business.
Yes, yes.
Um, I primarily run off Instagram and TikTok. Those are my main platforms at Jaime91, JAIM91 on Instagram, and then Jaime Filer on TikTok. I really just like using those platforms to get my message out. They're my little soapboxes. I don't do a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
actual promotion on those two platforms, but you go to a platform, you book a call with me, we see whether we're a good fit, then I onboard you, you tell me, like we talked about, what level of communication and accountability you would like from me. I subsequently make you a program, we dialogue, you transform your life. It's that easy.
Right. And for my queer community out there, I do think it's really important to be working with a trainer who understands this. I mean, your sexuality, your identification of who you are in life affects every part of how you show up. And especially if you've had trauma, it's really helpful to work with somebody who really understands that. And especially a high quality coach like Jaime, who doesn't even know all the things that she's doing well. You can trust that you're going to get a really good service from her, knowing that it's a sustainable, right? It's not just like, let's shred you and then I'm going to cut you off and get you into a binge and restrict cycle. It's like, nope, this is for the long haul transformation. So please go out, reach out to her. Jaime, I know you have this free ebook coming out. Do you want to talk about that real fast? I'd love for
Yes.
people to know about it.
Of course. So Katie is my wife. We came up with an ebook specifically for people who, like we spoke about, are not quite ready for they're ready for the gym, but they don't know how to get there. So they're in the
Mm-hmm.
contemplation stage, not so much the pre-contemplation stage. And it's called Get Out of Your Head and Into the Gym. And what we do is we break down literally everything from what to eat before, during, and after to wear what you feel comfortable in, to what to listen to, what to pack, everything, how to log your workouts,
Awesome.
beginner workout. So again, there's a link to that in my Instagram bio as well.
I love that you get so detailed because, especially for our queer parents out there, you can get decision fatigue where you're just like, I can't make any more decisions. Jaime, just tell me what to do and I will do it, right? I
Yes.
can't think anymore. So that sounds amazing. Please go find Jaime. Jaime, it was wonderful to have you and can't wait to have you on again.
Let's do this again sometime.
Okay, bye.